Captain David Turner stood in the observation deck of the Galactic Council station, watching the stars beyond the transparent aluminum walls. He had been the human representative to the Council for only 3 years, but he understood the position well. Humanity was new. Humanity was weak. Humanity did not matter. The message came through at 14:33 station time. An attack. The Vex Collective had struck the 442 colony with military force. 50,000 humans lived in that colony. 50,000 men, women, and children who had traveled 30 light years to build something new. David moved fast. He contacted Commander, who was reviewing diplomatic files in the human quarters. Within minutes, they were moving through the station corridors toward the emergency council chamber. Other species moved past them, some barely noticing the two humans. A diplomat made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. An administrator simply looked away. The council chamber was large and circular. Each species had a seat arranged in a perfect ring. Humans sat at the lowest position, not by accident but by design. It was a reminder that they were guests here, not equals. David took his place. Around him, the other delegates watched and waited. The Vex attack was no secret anymore. Every station knew. Every ship in space had received the transmission. Chancellor Morn of the Sovereign Assembly opened the session. Morn was old, even by the standards of his species. He had seen dozens of conflicts across the galaxy. He had learned to care about none of them. The 442 settlement has been attacked, Morn stated simply. A colonial dispute has begun. This is a matter for regional resolution. David stood. The settlement is a peaceful colony. It has broken no laws. The Vex Collective is committing an act of war against human space. It is a colonial matter, repeated a representative of the Empire. The Council cannot become involved in every small conflict. It would be chaos. 50,000 people, David said. His voice was steady, but anger burned in his chest. That is not a small conflict. A diplomat turned in his seat, his multiple eyes all focused on David at once. The human worlds are distant from established space. It is unfortunate, but these things happen. Perhaps your species should consider migration to more protected regions that would be willing to accept some humans as refugees. The statement hung in the air like a weapon. Around the chamber, several delegates made small gestures of approval. Yes, that seemed reasonable. Humans could move. Humans could abandon their colonies and live under the protection of stronger species. David felt his jaw tighten. We will not abandon our people, we will defend them. A sound like wind chimes filled the chamber. It was a senior member of the Luminous Collective. He was laughing. Defend them with what? Your species has no military strength. Your ships are decades behind our standard technology. You have been part of the galactic community for 40 years. In that time, you have not built anything of note. The Vex will take your colony because the Vex are strong. Your people will be absorbed into Vex space or they will die. This is how the galaxy works. More laughter, not all of it, but enough. David looked around the chamber and saw species that had traded with humans, shared knowledge with humans, called themselves partners with humans. Now they laughed at the idea that humans could fight back. We will send a rescue fleet, David said firmly. We will defend our people. With what resources? Asked Morn. Your entire military presence in this region is 3 combat vessels. The Vex have sent 20. Even if you had ships available for rescue, they would arrive too late. The colony is already under siege. David left the chamber. There was nothing more to say. The vote, had they taken one, would have been unanimous against intervention. The galaxy had spoken. Humanity was alone. In the corridor, Commander caught up to him. Her face was dark with anger. They will not help us. No, David said, they will not. My family is in 442, said quietly. My sister, her children. David put a hand on her shoulder. He did not have the words to comfort her. Instead, he moved toward the communications center. It was time to contact Earth. It was time to contact the fleet. It was time for humanity to learn what the galaxy had just decided about them. The message to Earth took 4 hours to transmit across the vast distance of space. 4 hours for David to sit in the communications room and wait for a response. 4 hours for the reality to settle into his mind. The Vex were attacking. The Council would not help. Humanity's colonies were hanging in the balance. General Hayes responded within minutes of receiving the transmission. Her image appeared on the screen, and David could see the controlled fury in her expression. She was already in the Earth Defense Command Center, already mobilizing resources. "How long until our nearest fleet can reach 442? David asked. 16 days, General Hayes replied. "If we push the engines to the limit, if we leave now. But David, the colony will not last that long. Intelligence suggests the Vex siege weapons will break through the defenses in 4 days at most. We will not reach them in time to save the settlement." "Then we save the people," David said. "We evacuate anyone we can." "Agreed," said General Hayes. "I am already preparing transport ships, but David, there is something else you should know. The 442 colony was not the only target. We have received reports of Vex activity near 3 other human settlements. They are testing us. They want to see how we respond." David understood. This was not just an attack. This was an invasion. This was the moment the galaxy had been waiting for, the moment when they could finally prove that humans did not belong in the galactic community. "How long until you can have ships ready?" David asked. General Hayes had spent 22 years preparing for a moment like this. Not in her conscious mind, not in the official records, but in the deeper layers of military planning where the possible always lived alongside the probable. Now, as she stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, surrounded by screens showing Vex movements and human fleet positions, she activated protocols that had never been spoken aloud in public. The first contingency was the Fleet Reserve, 3 full task forces held back from public knowledge, equipped with the latest weapon systems and staffed with humanity's best pilots. These ships had been kept secret from the Galactic Council. The Council would have objected. The Council would have called it militarism, called it aggression, called it human paranoia. The Council would have been wrong. Colonel West stood in the briefing room of the fighter base near Earth orbit. He was a man with hard eyes and a harder jaw, someone who had trained his entire life for combat that he had hoped would never come. Now, as the briefing officer described the attack on, he felt something shift inside him. All the training, all the hours in the simulator, all the strategies and tactics were suddenly real. "How many Vex ships?" asked. 20 heavy cruisers and 40 support vessels, the briefing officer answered. "Their ground forces have already established a perimeter around the main settlement. Colony defenses are holding, but they will break within days." "We have 17 combat craft available for immediate launch," said. "Even with full burn, we arrive in 16 days. The colony falls in 4. "Understood," said the briefing officer. "But your orders are not to defend the colony. Your orders are to evacuate the population. Colonel, you will take a fast transport with a minimal escort and execute a rescue mission. You will extract as many civilians as possible and leave the territory before Vex reinforcements arrive." Nodded. He did not like running, but he understood military necessity. Running with purpose was not retreat. It was survival. The 442 colony was built in a valley between 2 mountain ranges. The settlement itself was a network of connected domes and underground tunnels designed to provide shelter from the harsh atmosphere above. The Vex had landed heavy forces on the northern plains, establishing a siege perimeter. They were patient. They had the numbers. They could afford to wait. But the Vex had never fought humans before. They did not understand the nature of the species they were dealing with. Had been the colony administrator for 3 years. She was a small woman with dark hair and an iron will. When the sirens began to wail and the colony went to emergency protocols, she made decisions that would echo through history. The colony had been built with multiple evacuation routes, all carefully hidden from official surveys. The council did not need to know about underground rail systems that connected the settlement to landing platforms concealed in the surrounding mountains. The council did not need to know about tunnels that had been carved for exactly this purpose. Gathered the colony leadership in the central command hub. "We have until midnight tomorrow," she said simply. "Colonel West is coming with transport ships. We need to move people to the hidden platforms, every family, every child, every person who can walk." "What about the colony?" asked Dr. Hall, the settlement's chief scientist. "We abandon everything." "Yes," said. "We abandon the structures. We save the people. The Vex can have the buildings. We keep what matters." The evacuation began immediately. It moved like an organized current flowing through the hidden tunnels. The Vex siege weapons pounded the outer defenses, but the people were already moving inward, moving downward, moving toward survival. The colony's garrison of 300 soldiers held the outer positions, drawing the Vex fire, buying time. Colonel West arrived above, with 3 transport ships and 2 fighter escorts. It was not enough for a military victory. It was exactly enough for what he needed to do. His radio crackled as he began the descent. "This is command. We have civilians positioned at northern site, 5,000 ready for immediate extraction. We can have 10,000 ready within 6 hours. Felt something fierce bloom in his chest. The colony was fighting. The people were surviving. His job was simple: get them off the ground. The Vex fighters intercepted him before he reached the landing zone. There were 5 of them, fast and heavily armed, had 2 escort fighters. On paper, the numbers said this should not be a battle. It should be a slaughter. But West had not trained his entire life to accept what the papers said. He broke formation immediately, diving his transport toward the surface while his escorts engaged the Vex fighters. The transport was not a combat vessel, but it was fast and its pilot was better. The Vex fighters could not follow him through the mountain pass without exposing themselves to ground fire. They broke off pursuit. Brought the transport down in a clearing beyond the siege perimeter. Civilians were already waiting, guided through the tunnels by her team. They moved onto the ship in an organized stream, families clutching what belongings they could carry. "How many?" asked as she came aboard. 32,000, she said. "But we can get more. We have wounded in the medical center. We have people in the deep shelters who did not make it to the northern site. We need time." "You have 2 hours, said. "After that, we cannot land again. The Vex siege rings will be too tight." Nodded and moved back toward the tunnels. She knew this. Everyone knew this. The question was not whether they could save everyone. The question was how many they could save. Dr. Stephen Price worked in a hidden laboratory 200 meters beneath the colony. Around him, teams of engineers and technicians were gathering equipment, disassembling the weapons prototypes that humanity had been developing in secret for the past 5 years. Plasma cannons, quantum targeting systems, energy shields based on mathematics that had been classified by Earth military intelligence for decades. The Vex did not know these weapons existed. When the time came to use them, it would be a surprise. When humans finally fought back, the galaxy would learn that humanity had been preparing all along. Dr. Price loaded the final prototype onto a shielded transport module. Behind him, his team sealed the laboratory. The data was to hardened drives. The equipment was distributed across the 3 evacuation ships. By dawn, West had extracted 39,000 civilians from 442. The transport ships, laden with humanity's refugees and humanity's hidden weapons, rose away from the colony and accelerated toward Earth space. Behind them, the colony fell. The Vex siege forces swept through the valleys and domes, claiming empty structures and scorched earth. They had won the battle, but had already won the war by saving the people. General Hayes received the transmission of the successful evacuation with satisfaction. The loss of the colony hurt. The loss of human infrastructure hurt. But the people were alive, and with the people came the prototypes, the data, the secrets that would change everything. The first clash between human and Vex forces happened in open space near the 442 system. Admiral Karen commanded the Human Fleet Task Force, 20 heavy cruisers with modern weapons systems that the galaxy had never seen before. She faced 30 Vex military vessels, ships that were considered state-of-the-art across the galaxy. The Vex had won every naval engagement they had fought for the past 3 decades. Their captains were confident. Their ships were powerful. They had no idea what confidence would cost them. Admiral's fleet did not move like Vex ships. Vex formation doctrine was based on concentration of firepower. Ships arranged themselves in tight groups, presenting maximum weapon coverage to enemies ahead and around. It was strong. It was proven. It was predictable. The humans used dispersed formations, small groups of 3 or 4 ships spread across a large volume of space. The Vex commanders did not understand the tactic. How could ships scattered across space concentrate firepower? How could they support each other? The Vex ships moved to compress the human formation, to force the humans into close combat where Vex weapons systems had a clear advantage. But Admiral had no intention of fighting on Vex terms. She activated the first wave of attack. Human ships, each equipped with new quantum targeting systems, fired on Vex vessels from extreme range. The Vex ships still moving into formation took fire before they could even establish proper combat positions. 3 Vex cruisers took critical damage in the first 30 seconds. They began to maneuver, trying to find cover, trying to understand what was happening. The second wave of human attack came from an unexpected vector. Ships that the Vex had classified as support vessels suddenly opened fire with weapons that should not have existed. Plasma cannons, far more advanced than anything the Vex possessed, burned through Vex shields. A fourth cruiser exploded. A fifth took catastrophic damage. The Vex commander, a military officer named who had conquered 4 star systems for the collective, suddenly understood that he was losing. He had never lost before. His mind struggled with the concept. "Return fire," he screamed into the communication system. "All ships concentrate on the human cruisers, destroy them now." The Vex ships did what they had always done. They moved toward the humans with aggression and firepower. But the humans did not stand and fight. Instead, they broke formation again and scattered, each small group attacking from a different angle, using superior speed and maneuverability to stay out of effective Vex weapon range. Watched as his fleet was torn apart around him, 8 destroyed, 5 crippled. His command ship took a hit that knocked out half its systems. For the first time in his military career, ordered a retreat. The human victory was absolute. 15 Vex vessels destroyed or disabled, only minor damage to human ships. The commander of that task force, Captain James Holland, transmitted a simple message back to Earth. "First engagement successful, the Vex can bleed." Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire through communication networks. Humans had fought Vex forces and won. The certainty that had defined galactic power structures began to crack. Captain David Turner received the news while attending another Galactic Council session. The chamber fell silent as the information was announced. Of the looked shocked. Of the luminous collective, who had laughed at humans days earlier, now looked uncomfortable. "This changes nothing," Morn said, but his voice had lost its authority. "One battle does not determine a conflict." David stood. "It is the first of many," he said. "Humanity will defend its people. Humanity will defeat the Vex. And when this is over, the Council will remember that you abandoned us. You will remember that you laughed at our species. That memory will stay with you for the rest of your lives." He walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the Council sat in stunned silence. The easy certainty was gone. The Vex Collective was not accustomed to failure, but they adapted quickly. They sent larger forces. The humans defeated them again. Off the 442 system, around 3 other contested settlements in the depths of space between stars, human and Vex forces clashed repeatedly. Each time, the humans won. Commander led intelligence operations from a hidden base on the dark side of an asteroid. Her job was to predict Vex movements, to understand Vex strategy, to find patterns in enemy behavior. She was brilliant at it. Every piece of intelligence she gathered went directly to Admiral, who used it to position human ships at exactly the right moment. Within weeks, the Vex had lost 40% of their military strength in the contested space. More importantly, they had lost the confidence that came from inevitable victory. Their captains began to hesitate. Their commanders became cautious. In the Vex Empire's Leadership Council on their home world, the military advisors brought grim reports. The humans could not be beaten by force. Every Vex deployment was met with human resistance that was better trained, better equipped, and more willing to accept casualties. Vex soldiers began to fear humans. Prince was a young Vex commander, only 30 years old by his species measurements. He had volunteered to lead the assault force, convinced he could succeed where others had failed. When he took his fleet of 30 ships to engage human forces, he expected victory. Instead, he experienced something new, complete military defeat. His ships were broken, his fleet was scattered. He himself was captured and brought aboard a human vessel. Prince expected to be executed. This was what happened in Vex culture. Defeated leaders died. Instead, Admiral treated him with respect. She showed him the battle data, explained the tactics, demonstrated exactly how and why the humans had defeated him. "You lost," she said simply, "because you think like a member of a species the Vex home world hung in space, massive and ancient, the center of an empire that had seemed unshakable until humans entered the conflict." Admiral Koren's fleet held position in orbit, 300 human warships arranged in patterns of devastating firepower. Below, the Vex cities gleamed in the light of their sun, unaware that their world was in the shadow of extinction. General Hayes received the transmission from Admiral with no expression on her face. "The Vex home world is within striking distance. We can reduce it to uninhabitable space within 72 hours. We await your orders. The message traveled across space at light speed, taking 4 hours to reach Earth. General Hayes waited in the command center, watching data streams and intelligence reports. The war had lasted 3 months. Humanity had lost 2,000 soldiers. The Vex Collective had lost over 100,000 and counting. The Vex had requested negotiations through a neutral intermediary. They had requested a ceasefire. They had requested anything that would stop the advance of human fleets toward their home world. But the request was not enough. Not anymore. Inside the Earth's government chambers, a fierce debate raged. Senator Robert Wells represented the military hawks, the faction that wanted complete destruction of Vex capability. "We should obliterate them," he said coldly. "They attacked our people without warning. They thought they could take what they wanted from us. We show them that humanity does not forgive that kind of arrogance." "Obliterating their world would make us the thing we fought against," replied Director of the Science Council. "We would become a species of genocide. Is that what we want to be remembered as in the galaxy?" General Hayes entered the debate with the calm authority of someone who understood war completely. "The Vex have suffered catastrophic military defeat. Their fleet is crippled. Their military structure is broken. They cannot continue this war. If we destroy their home world, we prove that we are a species without mercy. The galaxy will fear us, yes, but fear is not respect. Fear is not the foundation of a lasting peace." Captain David Turner, watching from the human delegation at the Galactic Council, made his own case in a transmission that went directly to the government chambers. "We came to the Council asking for help. The Council laughed at us. We did not respond with weapons. We responded with survival. We did not seek to destroy those who rejected us. We sought only to survive and to defend our own. Now, as we hold the power to end the Vex, we face a choice. We can become what the Vex are. Or we can be something better. We can choose mercy." The debate lasted 16 hours. Finally, General Hayes made the decision. The Vex would be given terms, not generous terms, but survivable ones. A meeting was arranged on Neutral Station, a platform in empty space that belonged to neither human nor Vex. General Hayes attended with a small contingent of officers. The Vex sent Prince and 3 other military leaders, including General Marsh, the highest-ranking surviving officer of the Vex military. "You demand our surrender," General Marsh said, his alien features arranged in an expression of contempt. "You think yourselves conquerors now." "No," said General Hayes simply. "I think us survivors, just like you. Surrender is the option that allows your species to continue existing. The alternative is extinction. Choose." General Marsh was a creature of logic and military calculation. He had been beaten by superior tactics and superior will. The humans had demonstrated both. Surrender, though it cost him pride and position, allowed his species to live. Pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. "What are your terms?" he asked. General Hayes outlined them clearly. Reparations would be paid to every human settlement that had been attacked. The Vex would withdraw from all territory within 20 light-years of human space. They would acknowledge human military sovereignty over those regions. Trade agreements would be negotiated, but military alliance would not. The Vex Collective would be reduced from empire to regional power, but it would exist. "This is unacceptable," said General Marsh. "This destroys our empire." "Your empire attacked first," replied General Hayes. "You thought you were attacking a weak species that would crumble. You were wrong. Now you face the consequences of that mistake. You can accept these terms and survive, or you can refuse and die." It took 3 days of negotiations, but eventually the Vex agreed. The terms were harsh, but they were preferable to extinction. General Marsh signed the treaty, and the war was over. Admiral received the orders with some disappointment. She had been confident in her ability to eliminate the Vex home world completely. But she understood the larger strategy. Mercy was its own kind of weapon. Mercy, combined with overwhelming military power, created patterns of behavior that simple destruction could not. She ordered the fleet to stand down from offensive posture. The Vex world would not burn, the species would not be erased from existence, but they would remember this moment forever. They would remember the species they had underestimated. They would remember the power they had challenged and failed to overcome. Prince watched as the human fleet from Vex space, not out of fear but out of respect for their own decision to show restraint. He understood something that his military leaders were still struggling with. Humans were dangerous not because they were ruthless, but because they were willing to be ruthless and chose not to be. That kind of strength was rare in the galaxy. Back at the Galactic Council, the mood had shifted completely. The same council that had laughed at humanity now showed profound respect. Of the approached David Turner with a formal gesture of accord. "Your species has proven itself formidable," said. "The council would like to discuss expanded representation." David nodded but did not smile. "The council will discuss it," he said. "But understand something. Humanity did not fight this war for the approval of the council. We fought for ourselves. If the council values humanity's power, that is secondary to humanity's commitment to itself. That is what the Vex underestimated. The Vex expected humanity to seek external validation. Instead, we sought only to survive and to protect our own. That is the nature of our species." General Hayes, having overseen the military victory and the merciful peace, prepared for retirement from active service. She was 63 years old, and she had given the last 40 of those years to protecting humanity's place among the stars. Her work was complete. Others would continue the mission, but the foundation had been laid. She looked at the casualty reports one final time. 2,000 human soldiers. One year had passed since the Vex signed the treaty. Colony was being rebuilt, stronger and more fortified than before. Walked through the new settlement areas, watching construction crews repair the structures that the Vex had destroyed. The colony would rise again, but this time it would rise as something more than a distant human outpost. It would rise as a symbol of human survival and human strength. The population of the colony had grown. Many of the families that had been evacuated were returning. New colonists were arriving, wanting to be part of humanity's new future. The Vex may have tried to destroy the colony, but they had only made it stronger. Stood at the edge of the valley, looking out at the sky. She thought about the evacuation, about the desperate hours when she had moved 39,000 people through hidden tunnels while Vex siege weapons pounded the city above them. She thought about the military forces that had held the line long enough for civilians to escape. She thought about Captain West and the transport pilots who had come down to extract her people in the middle of enemy fire. The colony had lost the structures. The colony had saved the people. That thought was the choice that defined them. A message came through her communicator. The Galactic Council was making an official announcement. Activated the broadcast feed and listened as Chancellor Morn of the Sovereign Assembly spoke from the council chambers. "After careful deliberation," Morn said, his ancient voice carrying the weight of the moment, "the Galactic Council has voted to restructure its governing charter. Humanity will now hold 3 voting seats on the council, with full authority on all matters affecting galactic security and trade. This represents a fundamental shift in how the council conducts its business. The age of exclusive governance by the established powers is over. The galaxy is entering a new era." Felt something shift in her chest. The council had finally acknowledged what was already true. Humanity was not a species seeking acceptance. Humanity was a species that had earned its place through courage and sacrifice. Captain David Turner received the announcement with quiet satisfaction. He was still the primary human representative, but now he had authority that came from strength, not from the goodwill of other species. 2 other humans had been appointed to the council, Director and Admiral James. Humanity's voice would be heard on every major decision that affected the galaxy. The first order of business that the restructured council addressed was the creation of a galactic military academy. The proposal came from Prince, the Vex officer who had been captured and converted to understanding human strength. He suggested that young officers from all species should have the opportunity to study human military philosophy and tactics. "The humans taught us how to think differently about warfare," Prince told the council in a transmission from Vex space. "They showed us that strength is not about the size of your fleet or the power of your weapons. Strength is about the quality of your people and the clarity of your purpose. The galaxy would benefit from learning these lessons." The academy was established on the moon orbiting Earth, a neutral ground where young officers from across the galaxy would come to learn and understand. The first class included humans, Vex, and representatives from 13 other species. They would study history, strategy, and philosophy together. They would learn from each other. They would build the network of understanding that would hold the galaxy together in future conflicts. General Hayes, retired but active in advisory roles, agreed to teach at the academy. Her first lecture covered the concept she called the human principle: never escalate a conflict that can be avoided. Never reject peace that can be achieved. But always be ready to fight with absolute commitment when the time comes. The students, alien officers who had been trained in military dominance and conquest, struggled to understand how those three concepts could coexist. How could you reject escalation and still be ready for absolute commitment? How could you value peace and value combat preparedness? Easy, Hayes told them. You understand war as something you do. Humans understand war as something you are forced to do. There is a difference. When humans stop trying to be acceptable to others and start protecting themselves, we become something that cannot be defeated. But we do not look for that fight. We do not want that fight. The Vex wanted that fight. The Vex lost. That is how the galaxy learned. One of the young Vex officers, a cadet named, raised his hand. General Hayes, will humans continue to expand their military power? Will you eventually seek to dominate the galaxy the way the Vex once did? Hayes considered the question seriously. No, she said finally. Humanity has no interest in dominating the galaxy. We have an interest in surviving in it. Those are very different things. The Vex thought that power meant taking what others have. Humans know that power means protecting what we build. The difference in those philosophies will shape everything that comes next. Back on attended a ceremony celebrating the completion of the first new district of the rebuilt colony. 1,000 people gathered in the central plaza, humans and aliens together. Prince had traveled to the colony to witness the reconstruction, a gesture of respect and reconciliation. This colony was nearly destroyed, said to the assembled crowd. But it was not destroyed. The Vex sought to prove our power by taking what humans had built. Instead, we learned a lesson that the Vex should have learned long ago. Humans do not break easily. When you attack them, they respond. When you underestimate them, they teach you what you have missed. He looked at directly. This woman led 39,000 people to safety while the Vex siege weapons fell around them. That is the difference between humans and my people. We are trained to conquer. You are born knowing how to survive. That will matter in the future more than all the weapons we have ever built. A year after the treaty, humanity was not at peace. Peace would never be the permanent condition of the galaxy. But humanity had moved from being a species that was tolerated to being a species that was respected. That shift had consequences. Trade increased with human worlds. Technology flowed in both directions. Young aliens came to Earth to study, to learn, to understand the species that had beaten the Vex. Human technology began to spread through the galaxy, bringing innovations in everything from power generation to medical science. David Turner, serving his third year as a full member of the Galactic Council, received a message from an old ally. It was from the same counselor who had laughed when David had requested military assistance 3 years earlier. Humanity has brought stability to the galaxy that no previous power has managed, wrote. You did not do it through domination or threat. You did it through strength guided by mercy. The galaxy is learning to respect that. In my lifetime, I have seen many powers rise. I have never seen one rise the way humanity has. You are building something different. David read the message and thought about the journey. From being dismissed and mocked to being fundamental to the structure of galactic power. Not through conquest, but through survival. Not through aggression, but through unwillingness to be broken. The universe, which had shivered in fear when humans decided to fight back, was learning to shiver with respect instead. Because humans were not learning to be conquerors. Humans were learning to be neighbors, partners, and guardians of a fragile peace that required constant vigilance to maintain. Stood at the edge of the 442 colony, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that no other world produced. Her colony was rebuilt. Her people were safe. And somewhere in the vastness of space, other humans were building, exploring, creating, surviving. They were no longer looking for approval. They were looking for opportunity. And the galaxy, having tested humanity and learned the answer, would never underestimate them again. The universe had shifted. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as slaves, as equals, as survivors, as the species that had proven in fire and blood that they belonged. And when humans decided to fight back, they had changed everything. The new dawn was breaking across a galaxy that would never be quite the same again. The universe still shivered, but now it shivered with possibility instead of contempt. It shivered with respect instead of dismissal. Humanity had arrived. Eid and 20,000 Vex military personnel. Thousands of civilian lives disrupted and displaced. War was a terrible thing, even when it was justified and even when it was won. But humanity had entered the conflict as a species that could be dismissed and mocked. Humanity was leaving it as a species that had to be respected. The universe had shifted. The balance of power had changed. Humanity had taken its place among the major powers of the galaxy. And they had done it not by being cruel or ruthless or willing to destroy, but by being strong, adaptable, and willing to show mercy when mercy was possible. That was the legacy that General Hayes left to future generations. Not the victory. The choice to be human even in the midst of war. 4T has never truly been challenged. You fight to win. Humans fight to survive. The difference is everything. Prince looked at the data and realized something that shook his entire worldview. The humans were not more advanced than the Vex. Their ships were not fundamentally superior. Their weapons were better, but not by the margin that explained the consistent defeats. The difference was in the quality of adaptation. Humans learned from each engagement. Humans innovated in real time. Humans refused to break. When he was returned to Vex space as a prisoner exchange, Prince brought this knowledge with him. He shared it with the military council. He told them what he had learned. They were fighting a species that had evolved in brutal conditions, on a world that demanded constant adaptation. The Vex had built an empire on conquest and dominance. Humans had built themselves on survival. The Vex collective's leadership understood the implication. They could not win this war through military might. If they continued, the humans would eventually destroy them. But before they could make that decision, more news arrived from the front lines. A human fleet had destroyed the Vex military station at base. Another human force had liberated 3 occupied settlements. A third human task force was advancing toward the Vex home system itself. The universe, which had once looked at humanity with indifference and contempt, now looked at them with fear. Not fear of what they might do, fear of what they would do next. Fear that humanity, once unleashed, could not be controlled. And for the first time since joining the galactic community, humanity was not trying to be controlled. Humanity was fighting for itself, and in that fight, the galaxy was learning the truth. The universe did not shiver in fear of Vex weapons or alien armadas. The universe shivered because humans had decided to fight back. She opened a secure channel to her command staff. "Begin Operation Hammer," she said. "All contingency protocols are activated. For the first time in 40 years, humanity is not asking permission from the galaxy. Humanity is taking what is ours." Across Earth's orbital yards and military stations, ships began to move. Weapons systems powered up. The sleeping giant was waking, and the universe had no idea what it had provoked. 48 hours, said General Hayes. "We are calling in every reserve, every pilot, every engineer we have, but we will be ready. And David, we will not ask the council for permission, not this time, not ever again." The transmission ended. David sat alone in the communications room, watching the stars beyond the transparent walls. He thought about the children in. He thought about the families who had left Earth to build something new. He thought about the laughter in the council chamber. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. And when humanity decided to fight back, the universe would learn what true fear meant.